Well, welcome back to Nittany Game Week. Been a weird offseason to say the least for the Wildcats of Northwestern. In July, Pat Fitzgerald was let go as head coach after 17 years. 11 current and former players came forward with hazing allegations in the program. Now, the interim head coach is David Braun, who's also the defensive coordinator. The Wildcats rallied to beat Minnesota to even the record at 2-2. Time to break them down as the Nittany Lions head to Evanston for their third consecutive game against the Big Ten West, guys.
Well, Northwestern is always a tricky place to play, especially 11 o'clock in the morning. And Northwestern last week kind of found their stride in that fourth quarter. So it could be, they could be a different team than we've seen the first 3 weeks.
You just came off of a whiteout, and now you're going to go to Northwestern. There will not be a lot of people in those stands.
No, not at all. Let's take a look at them offensively first. 24 points a game, 98 yards a game rushing. So obviously you got to take away the pass. Turnover margin is -1. Now let's take a look at some of the keys here. Third downs are 47%, third in the Big Ten, which is a good number. Red zone, they are top 10 in the country in converting those touchdowns. Pass game, and then they're going to attack the whole field, which we'll talk about. Let's take a look at the first thing we want to talk about. We just mentioned they'll attack the whole field. Here's the middle of the field, what we call a triangle read. 1, 2, and 3, and they're going to isolate 2 guys there, Tom, and that's always tough for your linebackers.
We talked about this earlier. There's always somebody in the middle of the field in their pass game. Somewhere, somehow.
You're going to see the tight end come up vertical, guy comes underneath. The back, they draw those 2 linebackers underneath, and now that's there. So they're going to challenge Penn State's linebackers in the pass game with routes like this and triangle reads and go through the middle of the field. Let's take a look at the next thing we want to talk about. A.J. Henning is a transfer from Michigan, number 6. He's a wide receiver. They try and get plays out of him. He's getting 3 to 4 carries per game in the run game. 4 catches per game in the pass game. So, Tom, when you got a guy like that, you got to know where he is.
Everywhere he is, you better know where he is the go-to guy in this offense. He's not wearing number 6 for a reason.
Because he wants to get
6.
Yes. So, again, here's this jet sweep. But, again, look for what they try and do with him creatively. Not really been explosive so far this year, but a guy they're going to try and get the ball. So let's take a look at the next thing. They're not afraid. Now, in the red zone, we talked about how they are 84% converting touchdowns in the red zone. And one of the reasons is they're not afraid of throwing into tight windows. So here is a tight window, switch route to get your corner off your best wideout, Tom. And that's a pain for these guys when you run those switch routes.
Especially what's happening underneath, with who's got who and what coverage you're in. It can be a lot of problems.
And that wideout, number 17, had a big night the other night. They kind of found their rhythm. He had 215 yards receiving, so he's a guy to keep an eye on as well. Let's talk about them defensively. Points per game, 25.8. They give up a lot of points. 6th in the Big Ten in pass defense. That's their best stat, so not a great defensive unit. But the guys that you got to look at are in the core. The 2 middle linebackers, Gallagher is top 10 in the country in tackles per game. Mueller's active, and both those safeties are really good. But let's talk about the active linebackers. Seems like Northwestern's always had pretty good linebackers. So Gallagher underneath Mueller, they attack the line of scrimmage in the run game. But Tom, here in this one, you're going to see how disciplined they are in the pass game.
They're very disciplined in the pass game, and one of the problems they have, they don't have right there is very average up front.
Yeah, they got to get better. If to have a chance against Penn State, they're going to have to do a better job in the pass rush. But I would expect them to play a lot of zone against Penn State in the pass game. They come at you with a 2-safety high look most snaps. What you want to look for is when guys blitz, who fills the safeties, what are the corners doing? And if the corners come up and try and jam Penn State's wideouts, Penn State's going to have to attack these areas, which they have not done a lot of yet this year, Tom.
Yeah, you're either going to get the 2 shell or a quarter shell. That's what they like to play.
And with Allar's arm strength, he should be able to thread that ball into that zone area, and that's where the dead spot in that coverage is going to be. In third downs, they are pretty good on defense against third downs. They like to play some man, so you'll see some nickel come on. Here is a bunch set, 1, 2, 3, and this is a little bit of a lesson for you. A lot of different ways to defend the bunch, but here, he's going to wait for the inside guy. He's going to wait for the outside guy. He's going to wait for the high guy, and then he got help.
Yeah, it's just different ways to play it. You can play it this way. You can play, a lot of people will stab 2, and then you'll switch off 1 and 3. Whatever you want to do, stab 1, depending on how you want to play that configuration.
And it's a good way for them to handle the crossing routes that Penn State likes on some of those third downs underneath. They've thrown a lot of things underneath this year.
One thing this team needs to avoid is overconfidence. You could forgive them if they go to Evanston feeling really good about their play. They're destroying conference opponents and are more than a 25-point favorite in Evanston. Wildcats can sling it around the field, and the Nittany Lions' pass defense, well, they're going to be ready.
We just got to make plays in the back end. Obviously, being sound with how we line up to that stuff. Obviously, the team we played last week, it was more of a stop the run mentality, and we bring that mentality into every game. But we just definitely have to be more sound in our coverage.
Now, the pass defense was solid against Illinois. Special teams will play a role in the game. Here's Jacobs with one of his 2 fumble recoveries against Iowa. That one was on the punt return.
JobsBA.com.